So the first question is 322. We have the initial vector of a car, we'll call it V1, is 45 kilometers per hour in the position X direction, in the positive X direction. So let's throw three vectors. I'll do them this way. Now maybe I'll move down this way. So the first one is in the positive X direction. That means in this direction. I'm not doing to scale yet. I'm just graphing to see what I have. So that's the first one, V1. It's 45, the units kilometers per hour. We don't care about the units, but that's really the value of it, 45, in the positive X direction. This is V1. The final velocity of the car, V final, is 66 kilometers per hour in the direction that's 75 above the positive x-axis. So 75 above the positive x-axis. .75 in this direction. So the final position is going to be in that direction. I have two vectors. This is V initial, this is V final. And the V final was 66 kilometers. And this angle is 75-degree angle. And the question is, find V, which is V final minus V initial. That's what they define it. When you draw a line over there, that means it's a vector. So they want the value and the direction. And it says draw the vectors and all this. So they want to do them graphically. I can tell you when they give you a problem like this, they're probably not going to draw them. They're going to do them probably mathematically because they don't want to make a mistake. They want it to be correct. You know, the software is so picky there that if you're off by 0.1, they're going to mark it wrong. So these are the two vectors. I want V final minus V initial. So I'm going to start with this, subtract from it that one. So let me do them. There we go. Now I'll graph them to scale. So this was not to scale. V final, which is what? 66 angle 75. Let's find where the 75 is. 75 will be in this direction. And the value is what? 66. So what scale are we going to use? Maybe I'll use 23 will be too much. Where's 23? Yep. Maybe I'll use 1 centimeter is equal to what? I don't know. 5 kilometers per hour. So let's see. We have 66 kilometers per hour. What's 66 divided by 5? 13.2, the first one is going to be centimeters long. So the first vector is going to be 13.2 Ooh. Maybe my scale is too small, otherwise I gotta change the grade. You know what, maybe I'll make it 6. Because otherwise I'm off the paper. That'll be what, 11 here? centimeters. Now I don't have to get off the paper. Wait. So that's the first vector. That's 11 centimeters long. At angle of what, 75 degrees we said? That's the final. It says find V, which is V final minus V initial. Now, you're not adding, you're subtracting. If you were adding, you'll draw another X and Y axes right here. And you draw the other vector. This is V final. V initial is what, 45? Let's do the scale. 45 by 6, that will make it what? 7.5. Now in math, we learned that if you have subtractions like A minus B, that's the same as adding what? The opposite to B. Remember that in math? Well, so to subtract that vector is going this direction. To subtract it, you're going to add the opposite to that. Well, the opposite means change the direction of it when you have subtraction. So this will be 7.5, instead of to the right, will be to the left, because you're subtracting. Subtraction is adding the opposite. This is actually negative VI. So instead of subtractions, I'm adding now the opposite to that vector. And the opposite, you switch the direction of it. So from this, we draw the other vector backward direction. And the result that you're looking for, what the answer is going to be? The answer is this vector. That's the result. Lengthwise, I'm getting roughly 11.5. So the result of the vector, it's 11.5 times the scale, which is 6. Oh, well, that's not right. 11.5, I got a 9, times 6 is 69 kilometers per hour. And the direction of it, if you measure from the positive x-axis, where's my protractor? What is that direction roughly reads to you? 110, maybe 113? So it's 69 kilometers per hour, 113 degrees with respect to positive, or the positive x-axis.
Is there any way you could do this one on the actual program? Because putting it in doesn't look anything like that.
I don't know how they wanted to put in.
I mean, like when I type in 11 centimeters, it's like still on the middle dot. Like you can't even see.
I don't know how to graph them. I never did the graph on this software, so I couldn't tell you. I gotta look at it. I can tell you what the answer is going to be for B and C. It doesn't actually graph it for me, it just shows the picture there. I don't know if you have a picture on yours, or mine has a picture on it already. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
Where's the 11.5 coming from next to R?
That's the length of this vector.
Oh, that's the in centimeters.
Yep, in centimeters.
Okay.
So you're gonna multiply by the scale.
So
Yeah.
R is 11.5 centimeters
Correct.
times 6 centimeters.
Correct, the scale. So this is,
Did I put in 69? Because when I put in 11.5,
no, you can't do 11.5. That's the scale I'm using. So you have to use the scale. You have to say 66 for this one in that direction, and you have to say 45, and it doesn't know the scale I'm using. You know?
And so the negative VI is 6 centimeters.
The negative 7.5, you mean? This is negative 7.5.
Okay. Which line is 6 centimeters?
None of them is 6. That's the scale.
Oh, 6 is, okay.
6 is my scale.
Okay.
So VF, I'm using 11. What I can use any scale. That's why the machine doesn't know what 11 is. So because you can use any scale you want to use. I could have used a 3. I could have used a 2. I could have did no scale. So you can't really, when you graph, you have to say that's the 75 or the 66. This equivalent to 66 kilometers per hour. This is the 45 or the negative 45 kilometers per hour. The negative means you're going to the left. And this approximately 69 I get from the graph. I'm going to do the math because I know they're going to be looking for a better answer than this. They're not going to like that answer, 69. I might be okay with it. I might be off by 1. If I'm off by 1, it's going to be wrong. So technically, really, the smart way of doing these is to do them mathematically. But if they ask you to graph them, that's how you have to graph VF. And this is negative VI, and that's the result we'll be pointing in that direction.
And the angle is
From the positive x-axis.
all the way to
From
the
here.
second
Yep.
line on. Okay.
Right there. Now let's see what the math said, if I'm right or not. This could be 70, I don't know. This could be 110, 111. So I'm just in that neighborhood there. So the math says I need to write the two vectors. So here's the math. The vector, the x component, and remember x equals what? R times cosine theta, and the y component y equals what? R sine theta.
so this is from the part B.
If they ask you for the value for B and C, you don't want to do them graphically, because if you're off by a hair, you're going to be wrong.
Yeah, because it won't even show part B until part A is right.
Yep. So vector VF here, which is what? 66, what was the angle? 75. So the x value for that is 66 cosine the 75. And the y value is going to be what? 66 sine the 75. Let me go to my calculator and see what these numbers are. 66 cosine the 75. This is 17.1 roughly. 66 sine the 75. 63.75. Maybe I'll do 2 decimal places. And this one, 66 cosine 75. 17.08. I'll carry 2 decimal places. That's the final. And VI, the initial, which is what? 45 angle 0. The X value is going to be 45 cosine the 0, which is 45. And the Y value is going to be 45 sine the 0, which is 0. And the question for us is not to add them, the question is subtract them. So what is V final minus V initial? That's the result. So the result in the X direction, you have to subtract this minus this. So 17.08 minus the 45. The result is negative 27.92 in the X direction. The result in Y is going to be this one minus this. Notice X is negative, Y is positive. Which quadrant are you in? X is negative, Y is positive. Quadrant 2. That means you have to add 180 degrees to your answer. So what's the result? It is the square root of the X value squared and the Y value squared. The X value is what? Negative 27.92 squared, 63.75 squared. $63.75 squared plus the 27.92 squared, and it's the square root of 820.17. And when you do the math, and I know I screwed something up because I got 28. There's no way that's 28. 63.75 squared plus 27.92 squared. Oh, somehow I get the wrong number here. That's not even close to. That number is what? 4843.6. Take the square root of that, and it's actually 69.6. And since my numbers are two significant digits, what's the answer to this? 70 kilometers per hour. And what is theta? It's the inverse tangent of the Y value over the X value, and don't forget to add to it 180 degrees because you are in the second quadrant. What is Y? 63.75. What's X? Negative 27.92. And add 180 degrees to it. So second tangent, 63.75 divided by negative 27.92. Add the 180 to it. It is actually 113. God, that was good. 0.65. But again, all the numbers are how many significant digits? 2. So this becomes what? 110 degrees. So when you type in the answer for B and C, you need to type in that 70 and the 110. So that's the answer to part B and C. This is part B here, what is R, and this is C, what is theta.
Do you think you could show us your graph on your, to see like what your vectors look like?
After.
Okay.
Yeah, I just don't want to stop the video, you know. Just remind me again, I'll forget. Actually, I can switch to it quick. No, I'll leave the video running. Okay, so that's that question.
And
That-
you put in the whole numbers, right? 70 and 110.
Correct.
as your answers.
Correct.
Okay, and those were accepted on.
I've
Mass
corrected
Physics?
and they are good.
Okay, cool.
On the final, or the vector V, is it linked 45, angle 0?
I'll show you after. Once I finish with these, I don't want to stop the video now. Okay. So that's number 22. Number 27. Here we go. A particle undergoes a displacement. It says the displacement for that is, so this is number 327. The change in R, the result, is 54 meters. Direction, to give you theta, direction of 42, below the x-axis. And they're asking for, to give me the value for R, give me the x and y component, basically. So if you look at that graphically, you can do the vector graphically. Again, if I do it graphically, 22 below the x-axis, flip the protractor upside down. 22 puts me right here. It's below the x-axis, down here. And the length is 54. What scale should we use? You want to use, 54 is divisible by what, 9? 9 times 6?
Yeah.
So maybe I use 1 centimeter equals what? 6? So the 54 now will be how many centimeters? That's my scale here. 54 divided by 6, that would be 9 centimeters long. Dodge the bullet, just the right size. That's 9. So that's where the vector is. And the question, what's the x and the y component? When they say x hat, that's the x component and the y component. What are they? That's what they're looking for. Well, graphically, again, I'll do them graphically, then I'll do the math. You need to make a triangle here. Well, I'm looking at the length of the y value. That's up and down. It looks to me that's 3.5 centimeters. Can you see that on my scale? It looks like 3.5 centimeters. So the y value is 3.5 times the scale. The scale is what? 6? What is 3.5 times 6? 21. It will be negative. Oh, you know what? I drew that wrong. It says 42, not 22 centimeters, right? I did 22 for some reason. I thought it was 22 centimeter. You know what? I'll stay with 22. It was 42 actually. (22 centimeters). It was 42 would be which way? 42 is down here, right? So I don't know, for some reason the 22 was stuck in my head. I'll do the math both ways, because your numbers we change it from person to person anyway. Some of you might get the 22, some the 42, some the 53. That'll be a negative. Why negative? Because it's coming down. What's the x value here? Let's measure the length of this in the x direction. And what do we get? Looks like almost 8. So in the x direction, 8 times the scale, which is what? 6. What's 8 times 6? 48. So r here, if I was to write r, that says the change in r, I will write that it's 48 in the x direction plus a negative 21 in the y direction. So 48 in the x direction plus a negative 21 in the y. That little y with the hat over it, x with the hat, that indicates the direction. Delta is a change in r. You know. Now mathematically, again, if you want to do the math to make sure your number is really good, because you know 0.1 will be, if you're off by 0.1 it's wrong. The x component, we know it's going to be r cosine theta. So if you don't want to graph it, you don't have to. R is what? 54 cosine. And what's the angle here? It's actually negative 22, right? Because it's below the x-axis. You always measure the angle with respect to the x-axis when you use that equation. That's a negative 22 degrees. 54 cosine negative 22. And it says it's 50. So notice I was a little bit off there with the graph there. 50. And in the y direction is going to be what? R sine theta. 54 sine of negative 22. 54 sine of negative 22. And it's negative 20.2. So that's what you want to do. If you want to get the right answers, you don't want to do the graph because you could be off by a hair. So what is the net, the change in R? It is 50 units in the x direction plus it's negative 20 units in which direction? The y direction. I think for that they want you to write in the x and the direction, in the y direction. It says your answer in the term of the unit vectors x hat and y hat. So they want you to write it this way. 50 units in the x direction, negative 20 units in the y direction. Two more questions here. 33 and 61. Actually, this one, they're nice to us. They said, given A, they already given you the x and the y value. Given A to be 25 in the x direction, minus 12 in the y direction. And vector B has, I don't know if it's 2 or 20, I can't really tell. I think it's 2. 2 in the x direction and 15 in the y direction. And the first question, express A minus B. Well, what's A equal to? 25 in the x direction minus 12 in the y direction. And you want to subtract from it B, which is 2 in the x direction and 15 in the y direction. So your answer is going to be what? When you subtract the x from the x. 25 minus the 2, which is what? Is that 23 in the x direction? And in the y direction, what's negative 12 minus the 15? Negative 12 minus the 15. Negative what? 27 in the y direction. Now, I never wrote these answers this way on the software. I don't use the software, to be honest with you. So where do we find these symbols? The hat. Oh, I see them. X hat. (23x) minus, what did I say? 27, and that's the y. Submit. Got it right. Woo-hoo. The next one.
I'm sorry, is it one answer?
Yes, you just write it like this. I'll show you in a minute how to write it. B, or part B. This is part A. Part B is, what is B minus A? B is what? 2x plus 15y. And you're going to subtract from it A, which is what? 25x minus 12y. 2 minus 25 is what? Negative 23x. 15 minus a minus 12. That's plus 27y. I'll show you later how to type that answer in. And the last question I have is 361. You have A equals to what? 11.6 in the x direction, just in the x direction, that's it. And B equals, vector B equals what? Negative, 11.6, yep. Negative 32.2 in the y direction. And the first question, find the direction find the direction of 2A plus B. And the second part, find the magnitude of that. Direction and magnitude, both. So let's find what 2A plus B. So these are the two questions. So what is 2A plus B? 2 times A. A is what? 11.6 in the x direction. And add to it B, which is what? Negative 32.2 in the y direction. Two times 6 is 12. 2 times 11, 22. That's 23.2 in the x direction. And this will be minus 32.2 in the y direction. This is the result in x, that's the result in y. That's really what you're looking at. So to get r, which is the magnitude, it is the square root of the x value squared plus the y value squared. And the x value is 23.2 squared. And the y value is what? Negative 32.2, and you square it. You have the x and the y component, and you're looking for r and theta. So 23.2 squared plus 32.2 squared. So this will be the square root of 1575.08. $39.687. Let me look and see how many significant digits they're using. They're using 3 significant digits, so that will be what? 39.7. That's the magnitude. That's the answer to part B. Can we find part A, theta? So this is part B here. Part A, theta. Theta is the inverse tangent of the y value over x. Now, do we add 180 degrees here? Well, let's look. Which quadrant are we in? X is positive, y is negative. Quadrant 2. Try again. Which quadrant? Quadrant 4. X is positive, y is negative. To the right and down. Quadrant 4. Do we add 180? No. So theta will be the inverse tangent of y. What is y? Negative 32.2 over x, which is what? 23.2. And it says it's negative 54.2 degrees. Now, I'm not sure if they want the answer in negative or from the positive. I mean, write it. Let's see if there's any restriction on that. It says below the x-axis. Below. So they're already using the word below the x-axis. So how would you write your answer? You don't say negative 54. You'll say is what? 54.2 degrees below the x-axis. The negative to indicate it's below that. When you do negative, negative, that becomes positive there. So it's 54.2. They already wrote degrees, and they already wrote the word below for you. 54.2 we said, check my answer, correct. The magnitude, 39.7, check my answer. Check my answer. And it's not responding now. Submit. Nothing is happening. Oh, correct, came through now. Yep.